Welcome back. Once again, I'm taking a look into the weird world of Mr. Steve Pemberton and Mr. Reece Shearsmith. Back in 2009, they created one of the strangest black comedy, psychological horror and mystery series ever to grace the BBC, quite possibly the only one of its kind. I am of course talking about the brilliant and criminally underrated Psychoville. 7 years after the League of Gentlemen ended, or so we thought, Psychoville introduced us to a brand new cast of weird and wonderful characters. These included a mentally disturbed midwife, a blind toy collector, a telekinetic pantomime dwarf, a serial killer fanboy, and the world's scariest birthday clown. The show embraced the same dark humour the two have become famous for, which would continue into their next project, Inside Number 9. Unlike The League, with its sketches set around Royston Vasey, or Number 9, which has a different setting and cast of characters every week, Psychoville's players were part of a serialised mystery drama, which unfolded as time went on. This type of storytelling was incredibly popular at the time, with shows such as Lost and Heroes still drawing in millions of viewers. Psychoville was different. It was, at heart, a comedy, albeit with a very grim tone. The show was produced on a shoestring budget, unlike its flashy American counterparts, and managed to wrap itself up neatly in only 14 half-hour episodes. What's strange to me is that, for some reason, nobody ever talks about Psychoville. While it had its fan base and was well received critically, somehow it's never attained quite the same cult following as either The League of Gentlemen or Inside Number 9. To this day, it remains the overlooked middle child of their work. But I'm about to try and change that, so let's talk Psychoville. For a change, I'm going to keep this video as spoiler-free as humanly possible. However, I will include some minor plot reveals from the first episodes, which you might want to discover for yourself. So, just a little heads up from me this time. If anyone wants a deep dive in the future, then please, as always, let me know in the comments. The premise of Psychoville, or at least the first series, goes as follows. 5 people, seemingly with nothing in common, receive an ominous letter that says, "I know what you did." These letters are sent by a shadowy figure known as the Black Gloved Man, who appears throughout the series, revealing more clues as time goes on. Each character has their own sinister trait, and hints at a dark past involving either the things they've done or things that have happened to them. The creation of Psychoville began with the characters, so I'll start by talking a little bit more about them. After that, I'll be exploring the show's immersive digital experience, including the numerous websites that are still online today. Finally, I'll be giving a brief overview of the Halloween episode and the different versions that are available. But for now, let's take a look at our cast. First up, meet Mr. Jelly, an alcoholic amputee clown with a face that could give Pennywise a run for his money. Yeah, both versions. He drives around in a converted hearse bearing the slogan, "Mr. Jelly keeps kids quiet." He is not to be confused with his arch-nemesis, Mr. Jolly. Mr. Jelly hails from Salford in Manchester, where he is available for children's parties. However, his foul language, scary prosthetics, and red raw stump tend to be a bit traumatic for the tots. He wasn't always this way. In fact, there's a wonderful flashback to his pre-stump days, but he has since become a bitter and hostile figure within the clowning community, which in this show is a real thing. Mr. Jelly is played by Reece Shearsmith, one of the 2 writers and creators of the series. Fun fact, the birthday princess who appears in episode 1 was played by his daughter. Reece excels at playing these volatile, rage-bitten characters. Think Jeff Tips, Edward Tatsyrup, or even his brief appearances on the likes of Spaced and Max and Paddy's Road to Nowhere. I tell you, his rendition of The First Cut is the Deepest will stay with me forever. This personality works perfectly with the horrifying clown makeup, and it's always fun to watch him losing the rag in front of children. Next, we have Joy Aston, a bubbly midwife from Bristol, played by Dawn French. You might recognise her as the Vicar of Dibley, or as half of the comedy duo French and Saunders. Nurse Joy, no, not that one, loves nothing more than describing the sheer bloody pain of childbirth. Nothing, that is, apart from a mangy old doll that she has named Freddie Fruitcake. Much of the horror and tragedy of Joy stems from her unhealthy attachment to this doll. She's rarely seen without it, whether at work or at home, and insists on treating it exactly like a real baby, complete with nappy changes and breastfeeding. This behaviour drives her patients, colleagues and her husband to despair, particularly in her violent outbursts towards anyone who mishandles or insults her beloved Freddie. And just in case that wasn't disturbing enough, Joy is convinced that Freddie Fruitcake will somehow become a real boy. The subversion of the maternal figure, both as a mother and a nurse, must have been great for the writers to play with. And it has to be said, that doll is bloody terrifying. Steve and Reece, who had both become parents, got to use their experience of antenatal classes and all the horrors that those entail, turning them into a new backdrop for their unique brand of comedy horror. Dawn French was also no stranger to the weird and the grotesque. See the French and Saunders Exorcist parody for more details, and she was terrific in this role. And according to the end credits, Freddie Fruitcake did, in fact, play himself. Our next person of interest is Oscar Lomax, an eccentric old blind man who lives alone in his Yorkshire mansion. His financial success, along with his disfigurement, are both attributed to his dealings in the world of certain commodities. This turns out to be a massive collection of cuddly toys. Lomax is accompanied by his community service worker, Michael Tea Leaf Fry, who's drawn into the hunt for the legendary Beanie Baby, Snappy the Crocodile. Lomax is played by Psychoville's other writer and creator, Steve Pemberton. Steve originally got the idea back in the League of Gentlemen days after seeing a documentary about the Beanie Babies craze. He'd also read for blind people in his youth. The character never made it into the League, but was instead redeveloped for Psychoville. The idea of a dark underworld involving the cutthroat trade of children's plush toys perfectly fits the humour of this show, proving that truth can be stranger than fiction. Shout out also to Daniel Kaluuya in one of his early TV roles. You might recognise him for his performance in Get Out and the Black Mirror episode 15 Million Merits. He's brilliant here as young Tea Leaf, and as one of the more normal characters in this absurd setup, his reactions are priceless. Sadly, it wouldn't be the last time Daniel would get caught in the crazy schemes of rich white people. Next, we meet Robert Greenspan, who's rehearsing for a pantomime of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He plays Blusher, not Bashful, as the dwarf names were changed in order to avoid a legal clash with Disney. Robert is good friends with Kerry, who plays another dwarf called Sniffy, and has a crush on Debbie, the nice but dim actress starring as Snow White. When Robert gets his letter, he immediately suspects that someone is blackmailing him for his past filmography, having starred in several adult movies under the label Midget Gems. He is also convinced that he has telekinetic powers, which trigger any time Robert becomes angry or upset. For those who grew up outside of the British Isles, I'll try my best to explain the concept of pantomime. A pantomime is a theatrical show aimed at family audiences and school children. The plot is normally a retelling or spoof of a popular fairy tale, such as Cinderella or Jack and the Beanstalk. The show is performed around Christmas time, but usually has nothing at all to do with Christmas. Everything about the performance is over the top, from the script down to the costumes, and typically involves a lot of slapstick humour, audience participation, musical numbers, and cross-dressing. Don't ask me why, it just does. The dame character will normally be played by an older man, and the male lead is often played by a young woman, though that isn't the case with old Christopher Biggins here. So yes, the play you see them rehearsing in Psychoville is, in a manner of speaking, completely normal. The backdrop of a pantomime lends itself to plenty of humour, as we see the real lives of the disgruntled people who've been hired to play these child-friendly fairy tale characters. The backstage setting also holds great potential for drama, as anyone who's worked in theatre knows all the things that can, and might, go wrong. The cast in these scenes are fantastic. I thought Daisy Haggard was hilarious, and I really liked how Lisa Hammond's character develops over time. Sadly, Jason Tompkins, who plays Robert, doesn't appear to have done much acting work since. Never mind, it's a shit business. Finally, we come to David and Maureen Sourbuts, a disturbing mother and son duo who are obsessed with serial killers. They're a close-knit family, you might say, who share a small flat in London's Wood Green. Maureen finds David's letter around about the same time he confesses to her that he's done a bad murder. As well as killings, David and Maureen also share a love of music, including the Bon Tempi, the musicals of Andrew Lloyd Webber, and novelty dance songs from the 80s. Their rendition of Black Lace's Superman might just be my favourite moment in the entire series. This sequence was featured in the Hitchcock-inspired episode David and Maureen, which takes place in a single room, and is still the highest rated episode on IMDb. The Sourbuts are played by Reece and Steve, and it's almost frightening to see how easily they disappear into these roles. The two characters are both so distinctive in their mannerisms that they're instantly recognisable, even when in disguise. Their array of costumes include a pair of beauticians, the monster and bride of Frankenstein, and, well, anyone who's seen Bernie Clifton's dressing room can see where the Tina Turner reference comes from. Series 2 of Psychoville introduced several new characters, including Grace Andrews, who's investigating the original cast, Peter Bishop, the manager of a shop called Hoity Toities, Hattie, which is what you get if you cross Tish from League of Gentlemen with Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, and a fussy librarian named Jeremy Good, who's haunted by the mysterious entity known as the Silent Singer. That last one might be one of the strangest things they've ever come up with. One of the great things about Psychoville was the way it embraced digital media. Designed by the show's creators in collaboration with Rob and Neil Gibbons, the world of Psychoville came alive online, with websites that looked as though they'd been designed by the characters themselves. There are some glorious train wrecks among them, perfect for anyone who finds the original Space Jam website a bit too flashy. The online world of Psychoville even hosted an interactive treasure hunt, where users would have to track down the digits of a secret code across all of the websites, which would then allow them to unlock the final piece of content. But no spoilers from me here. There are too many sites to cover in this video, so for now, let's look at the ones hosted by the main characters. First off, jelly parties. Now you too can give your child PTSD with a visit from Mr. Jelly. That is, if they're not already traumatised by the look of this website. So many fonts. While you're there, you can take a gander at his 100 hands, all 16 of them, and browse the party packages on offer, including a spooky seance show for which he warns us the kids do get a bit shit up. Next we have Joy's Advice for Young Mums, a site that is currently under review for professional misconduct. This clip art-infested eyesore of a website includes a family photo gallery, harrowing details of pregnancy and birth, and a list of euphemisms designed for polite conversation, which are, of course, far more horrendous than any of the actual terms. You can also check out the Freddie Fruit Cam to see what Joy's little bundle is getting up to. Spoilers? Not very much. Lomax Commodities is a site for serious toy collectors only. If you've ever wondered how to spot a properly embossed tush tag, or why your commodities should be kept in their original boxes at least 3 metres above sea level, then this is the place for you. The photography might not be great given Mr. Lomax's visual impairment, but at least Tea Leaf was around to help him with the video. Robert Greenspan's page gives details of the actor's stage work to date, from Snow White in the Wolverhampton Panto in 1998 to Snow White in the Northampton Panto in 1999. He might have become a little bit typecast. Check below for Robert's guest book, for anyone who remembers those, and try your best to ignore the Midget Gems banner at the side of the page. And yes, it does allow you to click through. David's website, Best Murders, is a tribute to the two things he loves the most, serial killers and his mum. David's gallery includes drawings he's done of all his favourite killers, including Albert Fish, John Wayne Gacy and Ed Gein. He's also written a short bio for each one, with no regard at all for spelling. You can also check the videos of David and Maureen dancing to their Cheerin' Up tapes, however these might require flash, and the last I checked, at least one of them was no longer working. I should also warn you that there are some spoilers for Series 2 on this site. Other elements from the world of Psychoville have their own sites too, including the Murder and Chips Theatre Company and the Federation of Clowns and Children's Entertainers. All of these, and more, can be accessed via the BBC's archived page. Finally, I'd like to give a special mention to the Psychoville Hallowe'en episode, which takes place between Series 1 and Series 2. It places the main characters in 4 standalone stories, each with a spooky theme, in a format similar to The Simpsons' Treehouse of Horror. Just to clarify, the stories are not considered canon. While the ending of the Halloween special does contain some spoilers for Series 1, this is still a great episode to watch on its own, as it requires no prior knowledge of the show or any of its characters. Perfect for Halloween, or any time if you're a bit weird. It's worth noting that the Halloween special on the Series 2 DVD extras is not the full version. The episode has been heavily edited, and the entire section featuring Mr. Lomax has been excluded. However, the uncut version is still available on the Psychoville Halloween DVD, which contains plenty of other special stuff, including a full audio commentary and backstage interviews with Mr. Jelly. I'd certainly consider this to be a worthwhile commodity. So that's Psychoville. If you're a fan of The League of Gentlemen, Inside Number 9, or just weird dark comedy shows in general, then give it a watch. This should be right up your street. If you've already seen it, then what did you think? Do you think Psychoville is underrated, or do you reckon it wasn't as good as their other shows? I'll definitely be reading the comments, because I'm dying to know what all you other psychos think. Just before you go, I'd like to make a little announcement. My channel has now reached over 1,000 subscribers. I know that's a small thing in terms of YouTube, but it means a whole lot to me. Huge thanks to everyone who helped to make this happen. To celebrate, I'm planning on recording my very first Q&A video, so if there's anything you'd like to ask me about the channel or myself, then please reply to the comment pinned below. I'll let you know when that video is coming out, and I'll try to answer as many of your questions as I can. My next scripted video will be an analysis of the 12 Days of Christine. It's my favourite episode of Inside Number 9, so make sure you come back for that one. Once again, massive thanks to every last one of you, and please remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Till then, good night.